it, because you see what's happening is all these historical themes, the birth and expansion of Islam, the rise of medieval Europe, the birth of the machine age, so on and forth, all of this stuff is going to occur in a compressed form between now and 2012 AD. I mean, this is my hypothesis. This is the truly odd notion that the mushroom wants to put forth, that the universe is not going to exist for billions or even hundreds of millions of years into the future, that actually the historical process signifies something loose in the informational domain that is very strictly self-limiting. And so history doesn't go off millennia into the future. History, because of the way in which it is feeds back into technological development, history is some kind of self-limiting process that transforms the material that it works upon, and the material that it works upon are, human lives, human destinies. I would never have come to this idea myself. I mean, it's too irrational for me. But when you think, you can then, once it's articulated, make a case for it. I mean, after all, what is the counter case? What do straight people have to offer? Well, what straight people have to offer is that the universe sprang from nothingness in a single instant from an object whose diameter was less than that of a single electron. Well, hell, if you could buy into that, what couldn't you buy into? I mean, it's like the grossest series of imponderabilities and unlikelihoods that you could string together. Yeah.
What does happen if you extrapolate the curve backwards to 20 billion years before the Big Bang?
You mean, where does this go?
Yeah, you started at 6 billion years. What if you had started at 20 billion years ago?
Well, the duration of the wave, it has no... Oh, excuse me. The wave has no defined physical duration because it's a mathematical entity. It does have convenient breakpoints at 72 billion years and 1.5 billion years. And because we know there are things that have gone on that have taken 0.5 billion years, but we don't know of anything that's gone on that's taken more than 72 billion years. We've sort of rested with the assumption that 72 billion years is the duration. Do you see how the idea of the resonance works? It works in a very literary fashion, somewhat in the way that James Joyce wrote Ulysses. Ulysses is the story of a man who seeks to buy kidneys for his breakfast in Dublin. But in so doing, he manages to be Ulysses and to visit all the ports of call that are listed and mentioned in the Odyssey. In other words, it's allegory, it's internalization of a scheme of action in one time and place and transferring it to another. But I think that this is how life is really put together, and that this is what psychedelics teach you on one level. Is one way of putting it is Rome falls 9 times an hour, and you just have to be paying attention 9 times an hour to see it go by, and everything else happens 9 times an hour, and 3 times a day, and once a week, and twice a month, and 4 times a year, and 8 times a millennium, and so forth and so on. And we're stacked up inside this system of resonances, historical references, ghosts, scattered mirages, images, the memories of the casuistry of past events. Yeah.
So, when you say 2012, I don't understand what you're saying. You're saying then we no longer resonate with these other times in the past, and is that what they mean by the end of ordinary history?
Well, yeah, I sort of fudged. I didn't say what happens in 2012. I don't really know. I imagine it to be this fairly grandiose event that has to do with, how I said the universe is a machine for the conservation of novelty, but that it conserves and produces novelty at an ever faster and faster rate, and that the presence of human history actually indicates that we have entered into what Whitehead called the short epochs, meaning kinds of time that are coherent unto themselves, but that may last only a few centuries or only a few decades, I mean, the way in which the 20th century is a time unto itself. Well, I see this speeding up until the point where nobody will be unaware of the fact that the whole space-time continuum is somehow collapsing on itself. It's a fairly literary idea because we're accustomed to thinking of space-time as just sort of hanging around. We're not accustomed to the idea of it migrating toward a point. But I think that the whole human species is involved in birthing some kind of alchemical object or some kind of transcendental something, and that, the reason our history is haunted by messiahs and prophets and wild-eyed characters preaching doom and redemption is because in our dreams, in our visions, we're picking up like 5% seepage from the transcendental object in hyperspace, and it's what gives history a kind of direction. I said that the academic theory of history was that it was a random walk.
The transcendental object in hyperspace
Is
picking up the vibrations from, that's the thing in the future.
Yes, and it's giving history a kind of compass, so that we keep correcting our course. We're not even aware this is what we're doing, but we are actually stumbling toward and defining into narrower and narrower areas this thing that we're after. And when we finally grab onto it, it'll be wonderful, according to me. It'll be the flesh-made word, or, the year of the jackpot, or something like that.
How was the year 2012 arrived at? Is that what the algorithm pointed toward?
Yes, the algorithm pointed toward that when we saw it best fit between the curve at a point toward 2012, then what was a good confirmation or a curious coincidence, depending on where you stand, is that the whole Mayan calendrical axis turns out to rotate on the same day, the exact same day. For some reason, the Maya, who had a calendar of 5,306 years of 13 bakhtins, 13 cycles, made the winter solstice of 2012 AD the axis point of their whole calendrical machinery. Now, the only thing I have in common with the Maya is we both have this affiliation with the mushroom. Is it conceivable? It's barely conceivable to me that the message in the mushroom is specific enough that no matter in what time or place you take it, it directs you toward a specific solstitial event and a particular annual journey of the planet around the sun. Then the question becomes, well, there are a number of questions, the least of which is, how did they do this? And then the major one is, why? Why do this? What does it mean to encode a prophecy into a psychedelic plant? And then to have people dig it out so close to the attractor event that they're really helpless to do anything other than witness it anyway. No, this is the stuff of pathology. It fills the back wards of our private mental hospitals. But, something's going on. You just have to wonder. Well, that's a good question. Yes. Why the I Ching, which is what you're asking? Isn't it a little quirky to hang your whole theory on a mathematical sequence derived from an ancient Chinese book of divination? I mean, how dilettantish can you get, But the answer is no, because what they were trying to do with the I Ching was they were trying to create a general topology of categories, or a general typographic list of temporal categories. And the way they did it was by looking into their minds, by stilling overt physiological functions like breathing and heartbeat, and looking into their minds and seeing phenomena